The story I told was that I was a villain.
What if you're the hero in this story? Well, newsflash, you are. That's the message that my guest is spreading, 1 mile at a time. Fighting through the battle of addiction, infertility, and a lack of self-worth, this humble hero is on a journey to bring positivity and joy 1 smile at a time.
I had too much joy in my life, but I needed to find an outlet to give it back.
I'm your host, James Julian, and this is episode 16 of the Mean Grit Podcast. I'm very excited to introduce my friend, Peter Taylor, to the Mean Grit Podcast. Peter, welcome.
What's up, guys? Hey, James. Thanks for having me. I can't believe I'm here having this moment right now.
What we're going to see, and you've seen some glimpses, and you're going to see some more glimpses of some high-level positivity out on the street. Yeah. And that's what you bring, and I'm super excited to talk about that.
A little bit about me is I'm Peter, and that's my real name. So I leaned into that and have taken on a version of Spiderman to spread good and positivity. And I'm doing that because I went through my hardships in life and I survived them.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to, but I did. And on the other side of that was this magic I found, this peace in the life that I lived, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what I get to experience now.
Just like every superhero, there is an origin story, and there is as that hero journey happens, you have to face difficult things. And that's where I was impressed with your story and felt like it melded well with what we talk about here on the Mean Grit Podcast, and kind of the grit that you had to fight through to kind of flip this perspective and change this paradigm of, hey, I'm in a bad spot, to I'm overjoyed with I'm too full of happiness that I've got to share it. I think that is so awesome. So let's go back and kind of let's talk about, how did you get here, and what was that valley you had to cross in order to get to where you're at?
Well, would you mind if I take the mask off?
Would love to see the man behind the mask.
Oh, here it comes. This is a rare
brace
moment.
yourself.
People don't get to see this when I'm out on the runs.
There he is. There he is.
My story, it's my whole life.
Yeah.
We can't really separate ourselves from experiences that we have.
Right.
They happen, they're part of us, and whether they play a big role or a small role, it makes us who we are. And I think the main part of my story that I think we're going to get into, that centers around my relationship with fatherhood, with being a son, and the journey into fatherhood myself.
Yeah.
I get to be a dad. But there was a period of my story where I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I truly thought that the train for fatherhood had left the station, and I missed it. And it was pretty scary, because that also meant to me that I might be losing my wife, because she deserved a family, and I might not be able to have given it to her.
Yeah. Do you feel that was more your thinking, or had she vocalized that to you?
Completely my own.
Yeah.
Part of my story is that I learned to be alone and do most of life alone. And that meant keeping the darkness at bay, the things I was ashamed of or afraid of. My father came from a terrible background, and he did miles better than what was done for him growing up. And I think that's pretty common.
Right.
I think that's very common. It's rare that people become worse than the examples they were given. But there was still an impact that his choices had on me, and I was really afraid to be a version of myself that resembled the anger that he exampled for me growing up. And I didn't want to bring that into fatherhood, and I knew I had it in me. I learned a form of anger.
Yeah.
And so I just ended up in this journey of infertility with my wife, and the whole experience to get from let's try and have kids now to we have a kid was the darkest chapter of my life, and that even goes for the other 20 plus years of shame that I had dealt with before that.
Yeah, because it was something that you wanted so bad.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. I wanted a fairy tale story. I wanted a romantic comedy story with my wife, and we weren't living it.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening, and I started to take accountability for, the role I was playing in our story unfolding.
Yeah.
Um,
Accountability in a positive way, like you started to make changes that affected this positively, or could I phrase it in a different way? Like maybe you were taking too much of the blame on yourself, like this was all you?
Yeah, I definitely was holding the world up on my shoulders. I thought, it was good that I was staying quiet. It's good that I was holding the darkness or the shame
Everything
that day.
in.
Yeah. And I have to do this. This is what you do.
Right.
Because if I don't, then it'll come out, and I will. The thing I'm so afraid of, the anger, it will manifest itself through me. And what I didn't know was that by holding it in, I was leaking it. It was eking out everywhere, into my work, into my diet, into my relationship with my dog, of course, all of my other relationships. They were affected by this poison that I was holding on to.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it was when you finally decided to kind of confront that darkness and maybe open it up, that you were able to find your way through it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was the prospect of our one embryo, hoping that this embryo would be the one that would give us a family, that triggered me to go, it's time to face the music.
Yeah.
I know that there are things I've been putting off, things that I want to do, things that I don't want to do. And if I'm going to get to be a dad with this embryo and get to keep this magical relationship with my wife and make it even more magical, I had a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
I had a boatload of shiz to get done, and I started doing it, and I started. It all started with facing the darkness.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, what is this thing I got to tackle? Why am I so afraid to be a dad? What happened in my childhood? What did my dad do to me or say to me? What happened with my mom? all these questions I started asking, and I started filling in my answers to it.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I think there's a lot of people who don't struggle with infertility and they just take it for granted. Life, they have 1,000,005 other problems because they have kids, and they don't think about what life would be like without them.
Yeah.
And here you are facing, infertility, which so many couples do face.
Yeah.
And
more and more these days.
And it's just hard to talk about because you have some who it's like, oh, they play it off as, oh, we're going to pivot our lifestyle, we're going to choose a different life, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Or they go for adoption is an option,
Yeah.
foster care, and those are all wonderful things. But like, this was a part of your core, like.
Yeah. Like who I am was shaped by all the years
Yeah.
that I've already lived. And I have this saying where I go, my past isn't baggage, it's backup.
Yeah.
It's what I needed to live for answers to come to the problems that I'm facing throughout life.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, my wife and I, in a lot of times as we look throughout our own personal journeys, that a lot of times we have to look at that person and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, we might hold some level of resentment or disgust or whatever, some feeling of negativity towards that version of ourselves. And that's not always healthy. But sometimes if we look at them and say, I needed that person at that time so that I could be this person at this time, and I'm grateful for that. I think that perspective has helped both my wife and I a lot, because we have been in so many situations similar where it's like, why did I do that? Why was I in that state of health? Like, we were not always the healthiest people. and there are times when we resent those people.
Yeah.
But when we look back and say, oh, I couldn't be here without them, then it's like, oh, you give yourself a little grace.
That's exactly what the infertility ended up doing for me specifically. It allowed me to see my past through a new lens of forgiveness and gratitude. Like, why did I have this complex relationship with my father when he had such a complex one with his father?
Yeah.
And he did so much work to be so much better than his father that maybe gave him a sense of accomplishment. And maybe that is where we miss something happening in our relationship, where he went, well, you have no clue what I'm saving you from.
Right.
And it's like, well, of course not. That is the work that you had to do for us and for yourself.
Right.
And now I am learning what my hardships are in our experience. Nothing is ever the same for even ourselves.
Right.
Every time we order a Big Mac and fries, it's a different Big Mac and it's a different potato, you know?
That's
and
a good point.
I'm a different person eating it that day. So I just learned to like give grace to myself. And then it was like, well, you have to give grace to everybody else after that. The story I got is the one I got. And I'm so grateful for it, because now I do not take fatherhood for granted in the slightest. And I did have the time needed to tackle my fears, to address my darkness, so that it wouldn't be that poison within me leaking out onto my son and his fresh experience in this beautiful world.
Yeah. So the memoir is called Peter J. Parker.
Yeah.
And it talks about your life and this journey to fatherhood.
Yeah.
And your son, Parker.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start to transition here and talk to me about, tell me about him. Tell me about your book. Please share where can people find your book?
Yeah, I'm honored when people are willing to spend some money on my book. It is called Peter J. Parker. It's on Amazon only right now. And it's Peter J. Parker because my name's Peter, my dad's name is Jay, and my son's name is Parker. So it's kind of this fun take on our family dynamic.
Yeah.
It's playing on Spiderman and Peter Parker. Maybe there is a variant with the middle name Jay out there.
Come on, Marvel. Yeah. Give this guy a break.
Give me a comic.
Make him official. Peter J. Parker.
And so I wrote the memoir during the first 18 months of my son's life.
Yeah.
I decided that when the pregnancy took, and actually, let me explain a little of our infertility.
Sure.
I have male factor infertility. We found out after 2 miscarriages and then 2 failed IUIs, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the turkey baster method. All our tests were looking good, and after the failed IUIs, we were told we can do a 3rd one or a 4th one because everything seems good.
Yeah.
We don't know why it didn't work these first 2 times. But our thought was, well, there's a bigger, more expensive thing that we might have to do. Let's save the money from these 2 things and put it towards the IVF.
Yeah.
And IVF is where they make the woman's body grow as many eggs as possible at one time through medications, both pills and injections. It's insane.
Yeah.
And any woman that is willing to do that for motherhood, to bring a child into this world, is a queen, is a goddess. To have that drive to do that to yourself, to have that instinct, I'm so lucky, because if it was on me, I don't know if we would have got there.
Right.
But we did, because of her. Her body made 16 eggs, and then when we added my specimens to the eggs, we got 11 embryos.
Okay.
And then because we had gone through this crazy journey, we wanted to test the embryos to find out what genders we had, because I really wanted a daughter. And this was back before I did the personal work. I was still ashamed of myself. I was still afraid of my anger. I was afraid of, this, that, and the other. And I thought I could handle being a dad to a daughter.
Yeah.
But if it was going to be a boy,
maybe some of the stresses and fears of your childhood and your growing up would be just passed on.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to do what was done to me to him. And that's a gift, to have that instinct in you. So we tested the embryos, and out of all 11, we got 1 viable. 1 figured it out enough to where it was healthy to have a pregnancy with, but it was a boy.
Of course it was.
Of course, that's what this story needed.
Exactly, that's the character we needed.
I have no clue what the daughter would have been like. Magical for sure, but
and named Gwen, I'm sure.
We will see if we can do that. Now you've added a name to my list.
Gwen James.
Yeah. Well, James is such a special name to me too, which is cool that it's your name. But we won't get into that.
Yeah,
right
sorry.
now.
I'm distracting from this story here.
So anyway, we had the 1 embryo. It was a boy, and we were gonna wait 9 months to transfer him. So we froze him. He's our little winter soldier. And I got to start going to work on facing my darkness.
Yeah.
And becoming the dad I thought I could be and wanted to be.
Yeah.
So he came along. The pregnancy was successful and beautiful and relaxing. We had gone through the hard stuff already.
Right.
And so it really felt like we were in this time of, life can get good now. We can let life be good for us. We don't have to look for reasons to stress or be afraid anymore. I think we paid the price to have heaven on earth now.
Yeah.
So I started writing my story thinking, we can't have survived all of this for me to just work 40 hours a week for 40 years and not be there for all this effort we put in.
Yeah.
And so I got to work thinking, well, what am I going to do about this? Because I didn't get the college degree. I didn't really have a passion figured out. I thought I was going to coast in sales years prior to this, and so that's what I set myself up to do. But then I went, sales is stressful, and I don't want to bring that home, and I want to be home. So I was like, maybe I can write a best-selling book. You know, maybe I can make $1 million off of a book.
Yeah.
And maybe that dream will come true. We'll see. I don't think this version of my book is the one, but I'm so proud of the fact that I followed this dream. My wife followed her dream, and she stuck with it, and she got me to stay on board to have this family. And now my dream is just to make sure that we get as much time with him as we can. And so I wrote my book thinking it would help other men with their darkness, their relationships with fathers or sons. And that's what that is all about.
Well, first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
On the family, on the book. I think it takes determination, grit.
Yeah, grit indeed.
Patience, and definitely forgiveness to ourselves. And so that's so awesome. Let's talk about what you do out on the streets.
Yeah.
Because I think that is so cool. And this idea of bringing joy and happiness to other people, because you mentioned you mentioned Mr. Beast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good example of somebody who tries to give back in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times in our minds, we imagine the only way to really impact people's lives is by spending money or doing something grand.
Yeah.
But you're impacting people on a very simple level that is hopefully setting the stage for people who see you to say like, oh, you know what? Bringing joy to other people's lives is actually quite easy.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you do.
So I come from a family of runners. My grandfather got us all started into it, and we've done ultra races, or I've done 2 ultras, 2 50s. I love doing half marathons. I love doing my own challenges too.
Yeah.
And so I put together that I could, while running, and I've been running since we had the 1 embryo, and I was trying to fix my health in my body. I got more into running then, and I love it. But when I run, I have so much extra thinking power and creativity going on. And I listen to music mostly, and I want to run to the beat of the music.
Yeah.
And so I do these things, but I also was limiting myself because, you know, I don't want to be that crazy person. I don't want people to think I'm on some kind of crazy drug going crazy down the street. But I don't want to hold myself back. And so I bought a suit and thought that would be a great way to bring joy to people, is by donning the suit and running the trails in the mountains.
Yeah.
And so I started that the first year of my son's life. But then I finished my book. This was October of last year. And it didn't have immediate viral success, and it didn't
Takes time.
Go #1 or a New York Times bestseller. So then I started looking for work again. And in the meantime, while looking for work, I started running regularly, not on the trails anymore, but on the streets where more and more people would see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I had to get past the discomfort of wearing the mask too, because people want to see Spider-Man, not this guy in a Spider-Man suit.
Right, right.
And so I added the mask. I was doing AirPods for my music so that I could loosen up and dance and kind of make Spider-Man more engaging with people.
Yeah.
But then I can't hear people who are like, Spider-Man, what's up, dude? I needed to give people those moments, so I switched to a speaker, and that was after I created this backpack that would hold my sign so that my arms could be free. And so this whole thing that I do now was crafted over time. It wasn't just like, oh, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I knew I could make a sign and have speakers. But I get to be a version of Spider-Man that carries a sign, and I don't think we've said it yet. My sign says, "What if you're the hero?" on the front.
Yeah.
And then over time, I added a back sign that says, "Newsflash, you are."
Yeah.
And so I'm this Spider-Man who is holding up a mirror to the world, I guess. I'm the same guy, granted, different every day. One level smarter, or
Yeah.
one more day survived stronger. But I'm interacting with 1,000 different people while I am the same me.
That's awesome.
And so that means that there's 1,000 versions of me being experienced through all of those different eyes.
Yeah.
You know, the kid who's getting bullied and needs to feel like he gets to be the hero, or maybe stand up to a bully bullying somebody else.
Yeah.
The mom who is crushing it at staying at home, raising one kid is insane. Any more than that is insane times however many.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moms get to feel like, or I hope they see themselves as a hero, because
For sure.
moms are it. And any dad who goes to work to provide and has to miss out on so much of their kids' lives, they're a hero too. But do they know it? Do they feel that way about the experience they're having?
Right.
I don't know, but I want people to start asking that question to themselves. What if they're the hero and they can fill in the answer?
Yeah.
It's going to be different for everybody.
Well, hey, Peter, this has been fantastic. I appreciate the time and the willingness to talk about, difficult things, infertility. A lot of people struggle with this, and I think being able to talk about it and, navigate it in any way you can, I think is such a positive message. And you've done it through the persona of Spider-Man, which is so unique and so fun. So I appreciate the time, and thank you for having on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. We'll figure out what variant of Spider-Man I'm designated as, but to go through darkness and see the light on the other side is truly, it's magic.
Yeah.
Magic to the purest, in its purest form. And so whoever is still in their dark time, just make it another day.
Yeah.
Like, focus on that, and know that, to me, in my story, I felt like I had 20 years of darkness.
Yeah. And there's an Uncle Ben or a Tony Stark or a older, heavier Peter Parker, Peter B. Parker, that's willing to help. And so thank you. But so I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you've learned that you can fight through your journey, your hero's journey, and come out on the light on the other side. So like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.